Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss about the biochemistry and the classification of lipids and fatty acids. This is the part 1 of this particular topic. First of all, what are lipids? Lipids actually constitutes a heterogeneous group of compounds of biochemical importance, and lipids may be defined as the compounds which are relatively insoluble in water, or we can say polar solvents, but they are very freely soluble in non-polar organic solvents like acetone, benzene, chloroform, ether, alcohol, etc. Now, the very important functions of the lipids. Lipids actually act as a storage form of energy in the form of triacyl glycerol or neutral fat. They also form the structural components of the biomembrane of the body in the form of cholesterol and the phospholipids. They also act as metabolic regulators in regulating the steroidal hormones and the prostaglandins. They act as surfactant, detergent, and the emulsifying agent. Okay, why? Because they are actually having the amphipathic nature. Now they also forms the insulator or the electrical insulators in the nerve. They also provide insulation against changes in the external temperature in the human being or any kind of living being body. They also give shape and contour to the body. They protect the internal organs by providing a layer of pad or fat around the particular internal organ. They also absorb the fat soluble vitamins. What are fat soluble vitamins? They are mainly A, D, E and K, and also improves the taste and the palatability of the food. Now, very important, most frequently asked question in the exam, there is a classification of lipids. They mainly classify into 4 types, that is the simple lipids, compound lipids, derived lipids, and the lipid complex to other compounds. Now, in the simple lipids, we are having the further 2 subtypes of the simple lipids, that is the triglycerides, waxes. Triglyceride is also known as a neutral fat, or we can say triacyl glycerol. Now, the compound lipids actually further divided into 2 subtypes, that is the phospholipid containing the phosphoric acid and the non-phosphated lipids. Phospholipid contains the phosphoric acid, that means it will be having the phosphate group, while the non-phospholipid will be not having the phosphate group in them. Now, this actually having 4 subtypes in it, that is nitrogen containing group, non-nitrogen containing group, plasmalogen, and the phosphosphingoside. And the non-phosphated lipids are the glycosphingolipid and the sulfolipids. Now, the derived lipids, they are mean the fatty acids, steroids, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, terpenes, and dolichols. While the lipid complex to other compounds are the proteolipids and the lipoproteins. Now, we'll discuss about all these things in detail. Now, first of all, the simple lipids. Now, in the simple lipids, if you remember, I told you that we have main 2 subtypes, that is the triglycerides and the waxes. Now, first of all, triglyceride, also known as the neutral fat, also known as the triacyl glycerol. Now, these are mainly the esters of the trihydric alcohol, that means the glycerol. They are mainly the esters of the glycerol with the fatty acid. As you can see in this diagram, glycerol combined with 3 fatty acids. Now, according to this, we have divided it into further 2 types, that is the simple triacyl glycerol and the mixed triacyl glycerol. The simple triacyl glycerol, as the name says, will be simple, of course. That means it will be having glycerol attached to the same fatty acid in all the 3 OH group of the glycerol. Means all this fatty acid will be same. When the mixed triacyl glycerol, the fatty acids attached to this glycerol will be different. The example of simple TAG is tripalmitin and the trioline. Remember, tripalmitin and trioline, while for the mixed TAG, it is the 1,3 dipalmitoyl 2-olein and 1-palmitoyl 2,3 diasterine. As you can see over here, the beta carbon is actually having different group, while over here the first carbon is actually having different group. So that's why its name is like this. Now remember, if PUFA, that means the polyunsaturated fatty acid, is actually attached to the glycerol, then it will always attach at the second carbon atom. If PUFA is actually attaching or esterifying with this glycerol, it will be always attached at the beta carbon position only. Now, next is the physical property of the triglycerides. Now, mainly, if you know, we have mainly 2 types of neutral fat or the triglyceride, that means the oil and the fat. Now, oil, we all know they are mainly liquid at room temperature because they are unsaturated. Because they are unsaturated fatty acid, they will be liquid at room temperature or 20 degrees Celsius. and the oils are generally of plant origin, while the fats are actually solid at room temperature and contain mainly saturated long chain fatty acid. And as because of the presence of a long chain saturated fatty acid, they are actually solid at room temperature and they are mainly of animal origin. Now further in the fats, where we are having two different types of fat, that means the soft fat and hard fat. Now when the constituent fatty acid have higher chain or the long chain and having saturated fatty acid, that particular fat is known as the hard fat because having the long chain and saturated fatty acid. For example, pig fat. Pig fat is actually having the hard fat. Now when the chain is having the unsaturated fatty acid and shorter or medium chain, that particular fat is known as the soft fat, as we have seen in the butter or coconut oil. Now remember, coconut oil is actually having medium chain triacyl glycerol. Now the storage of energy as fat. Now we all know in our body the basic storage of energy is in the form of neutral fat or triacyl glycerol. Now you may have question why in our body basic requirement of energy is actually given by the fat and not by the hydrated glycogen, because glycogen is also stored in our body but basic requirement of energy is fulfilled by the fat only. Why? Because suppose take an example, if in a 70 kg normal person, body stores contain about 11 kg of triacyl glycerol, which is roughly equivalent to 1 lakh kilocalories. Now if the same calorie was stored as hydrated glycogen, the total weight of this alone would be 65 kg. When the particular energy stored as fat or the TAG, water molecules are repelled and so space requirement is minimal. But remember, excess of fat in the body leads to obesity. Now the hydrolysis of this TAG, now this is basically done when this fat actually passes through the GIT or when it has to be transferred to the adipose tissue. Now over here as you can see, this fat is actually hydrolyzed by water, or in the presence of water it is hydrolyzed and is converted to its particular subunits. Now remember, in the body this breakdown is basically done by the enzyme named lipase, class 3 enzyme lipase. Now this triacyl glycerol is actually hydrolyzed first of all into diacyl glycerol and then into monoacyl glycerol and then finally into glycerol and free fatty acids. Now saponification. When the fat is actually or the triacyl glycerol is actually hydrolyzed by any alkali, it will undergo saponification and will form glycerol and crude soap. Okay. Now in this we are having two main terms, that is the saponification number and the iodine number. What is saponification number? It is actually defined as the number of milligram of potassium hydroxide required to hydrolyze 1 gram of fat. Milligram of potassium hydroxide required to hydrolyze 1 gram of fat is known as saponification number. Now this saponification number actually denotes the molecular weight of fat and is actually inversely proportional to molecular weight of fat. So if saponification number in a particular thing is more, so molecular weight of fat will be less. Now remember, in human being or human being fat, the saponification number is around 195 to 196 in the human being, while the butter has around 220 saponification number and the coconut oil has around 255 saponification number. Now the iodine number, it is actually the amount of iodine or the gram of iodine required to or taken up by the 100 gram of fat. Okay, and this iodine number actually gives the idea or actually denotes the degree of unsaturation of particular fat. Okay, and remember the iodine number of butter is 28 and that of sunflower is 130. Now very important topic, rancidity of fat. Now it is actually the term generally used to denote a condition of unpleasant odors and the flavors in the food resulting from the deterioration or the partial hydrolysis or the partial oxidation in the fat or oil portion of food. Now it is basically the partial hydrolysis or the partial oxidation of the fat which results in the unpleasant odor and smell. Now we have mainly three different types of rancidity: hydrolytic, oxidative and the microbial. Now the hydrolytic rancidity, this is basically due to the partial hydrolysis of the triacyl glycerol molecules due to the traces of hydrolytic enzyme present in naturally occurring fats and oils. Now when the oxidative rancidity, as the name says, oxidative, so there will be partial oxidation of the unsaturated fatty acid with resultant formation of epoxide and peroxide, which will further gives free radicals. Now if this oxidative density actually occurs in vivo or in the human being body or in a particular animal's body, it will affect the integrity of the biomembranes and will lead to the cell death, because this actually causes the formation of free radicals which will actually destroy the cell membrane and will ultimately the cell will die. And the microbial, of course, as the name says, microbial means the microorganism do the partial hydrolysis or the partial oxidation of this particular fat. Now, just to prevent this rancid of fat, we are having various of the antioxidants provided by the God to us. Now, many natural fats and oils may contain antioxidant, that is a vitamin E, which prevents the occurrence of the oxidative rancidity. Now, remember PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid, are more easily oxidized. So, vegetable oil with a high content of PUFA usually preserved with addition of antioxidant. And very important and the widely used antioxidant is a vitamin E in the nature. Now, repeating heating of the oil will lead to formation and polymerization of the cyclic hydrocarbons, and this will impart an unpleasant taste and color to the oil. Now, out of all the oils, coconut oil, remember, is actually we can prevent this rancidity, or we can normally use coconut oil as a very healthy oil out of all the oils. Why? Because it is actually having the medium chain saturated fatty acid which will withstand such polymerization even after many uses. And remember, the coconut oil is actually having saturated fatty acid, medium chain saturated fatty acid, for example lauric and the myristic acids. Now the waxes. Now this is the second subtype of simple lipids. First was neutral fat and now this is the waxes. They form the secretion of the insects, leaves and fruits of the plant. For example, lanolin or the wool fat, beeswax, waste palm oil, etc. So all the waxes are actually secretions of the particular plant or animal. Now these are basically the esters of higher fatty acids. Like I told you before, only the neutral fat was the ester of glycerol and fatty acid, while the waxes are actually the ester of fatty acid with higher monohydroxyaliphatic alcohol. Remember, monohydroxy, not trihydroxy. It is the ester of fatty acid with monohydroxyaliphatic alcohol and have very long straight chains around 60 to 100 carbon atom. They are mainly used as the base for preparation of various cosmetics, ointments, candles or polishes and lubricants. Now next step is the compound lipids. That is, in that, first of all, the phospholipid contain the phosphoric acid. Now first of all, what is phospholipids? Phospholipids are actually those lipids who are actually having the glycerol, fatty acid and a nitrogenous base. Okay, having the nitrogenous base. So that phospholipid actually contains glycerol, fatty acid and nitrogenous base. Now in that, as you can see in this diagram, out of the three OH groups, the first and the second actually attached to the fatty acid, while the third OH group of the glycerol is esterified to a phosphoric acid. And remember, the L isomer is found in nature because this phospholipid actually has an asymmetrical carbon atom and therefore exhibit optical isomerism, and out of them L isomer is found in nature. So remember that's why out of D and L isomer of the lipids, L isomer is found in nature. Or the amphipathic nature of the phospholipid. Phospholipids in general are amphipathic, particularly the lecithin. Lecithin is this. Lecithin is the first type. Out of the nitrogenous containing compound group, the lecithin is the first type which is actually having phosphatidyl choline, having choline compound in it. We will discuss about this later in this video. So it is actually having the phospholipid are mainly amphipathic nature, is particularly the lecithin one, and they have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic portion in their molecule. So that's why the glycerol along with the phosphoric acid and the choline, this is the hydrophilic. So glycerol, the phosphate group, okay, and the choline constitutes the polar head, while the hydrocarbon chain actually forms the hydrophobic tail. Now inspired from this, there is Michaeler formation. When the phospholipids are distributed in the water, when this are actually kept in the water, their hydrophobic part will actually keep away from the water. Of course, this circular is the hydrophilic part, and the inside one is the hydrophobic hydrocarbon chain. So when the phospholipids are distributed in water, their hydrophobic phobic part keeps away from the water, forming a molecular aggregates known as the Michael. These are involved in the solubilization of the lipids in aqueous medium and help in digestion and the absorption of lipids. Because of this only, we are easily able to digest the lipid in the GIT. Now liposomes. Liposomes are actually sphere-shaped vesicles. These are sphere-shaped vesicles containing one or more phospholipid bilayer. As you can see, they are having phospholipid bilayer. So one or more phospholipid bilayer. A lipid bilayer will enclose itself like this structure under appropriate condition to form the liposomes. They may be prepared by sonication of mixture of phospholipid and the cholesterol. Okay, and remember, these phospholipids are actually of various great importance. Why? Because when they are mixed in water under special condition, the phospholipid arrange themselves to form a lipid bilayer membrane which encloses some of the water inside the phospholipid sphere. Okay, now as because of this, as you can see, this is inside, they will store something. That's why drugs, protein, enzyme, genes, etc. may be encapsulated by this liposome, which could act as a carrier for this substance to target organs. Now the next is the biomembrane. The molecule align themselves to form the monolayers. Okay, with the, over here previously we have the many layers, right? Bilayer, the lipid for the phospholipid bilayer were actually in more amount, but while over here, as you can see, there is more amount of lipid monolayer. To form the monolayer with the polar head outside and the hydrophobic or the non-polar layer, of course, inside. So as you can see, this is the one and this is the another one, and over here in the center there is a hydrophobic hydrocarbon chain. Only fatty acid with more than 6 carbon atom forms a monolayer. So remember, the molecule align themselves to form the monolayers with polar head pointing in one direction and the non-polar in the opposite. Now this explains the role as components of the biomembrane, and the self-assembly of phospholipid into the bilayer is actually driven by the hydrophobic interaction. And in vivo, they act as pulmonary surfactant in the lungs, and they also act as detergent and the emulsifying agent. Now, the first type of the phospholipid containing the phosphoric acid is actually the nitrogen containing compounds, and out of this is the first subtype of that, lecithin. Lecithin is the first type of nitrogen containing phospholipid. Lecithin, also known as a phosphatidylcholine. This is nitrogen containing phospholipid, and as the name says, lecithin means egg or egg yolk especially, and it contains glycerol. The alpha, over here the alpha and the beta position are esterified with normal fatty acid only, and usually the beta position is actually taken up by the PUFA or the polyunsaturated fatty acid, because I told you before that the PUFA usually takes the beta position. Now what about the third carbon? The phosphoric acid is added to the third position to form the phosphatidic acid. Now the phosphate group is esterified to the quaternary nitrogen base choline. That's why this is also known as a phosphatidylcholine. Why? Because the phosphoric acid is attached to the third position and in the phosphate group, and in that particular phosphate group is actually esterified. This is the phosphate group, and this phosphate group actually esterified by the choline, nitrogen containing compound choline. The molecules in the lecithin exist as deuterated ions. Now very important action of the phospholipase. Now these phospholipids actually are cleaved or lysed by this particular phospholipase enzyme, and out of this phospholipase A2 is of the great clinical significance. We'll discuss about this. First of all, as you can see, this is the phospholipid, the glycerol, these are the two, this and these are two fatty acids, and this is the phosphatidic acid group, phosphoric acid group, right? Now over here, as you can see, when this phospholipase A2, this phospholipase A2 acts on specially the second carbon atom fatty acid, and this will cleave this lecithin, okay, and convert it into lysolecithin and fatty acid. Now remember one more important thing, the lysolecithin is actually act as detergent and a hemolytic agent, and this enzyme phospholipase A2 is basically found in the viper snake's venom. And as because of this, when the viper snakes bite, because of the formation of the lysolecithin in the body actually in the body the hemolysis occur, and consequent renal failure also causes. Now this phospholipase A2 mainly acts at this first carbon atom fatty acid, and mainly breaks down this into acyl glycerolphosphorylcholine and the fatty acid. The phospholipase C actually acts at this phosphoric acid group and converts it into 1,2 diacyl glycerol and phosphorylcholine, and the D1 also acted at the same place, third carbon atom, and will convert it into phosphoric acid and choline. Now the pulmonary surfactants. Now, the pulmonary surfactant is a surface active lipoprotein or the phospholipoprotein formed by the alveolar cells. In the alveoli, basically the pulmonary surfactant are mainly present. The phosphoprotein has both hydrophilic and hydrophobic region in the same molecule, and the molecule is seen at air-water interface of the alveoli. Now, the alveoli has an intimate tendency to collapse because of the spherical shape, as you can see. So, as because of this, they can collapse easily. Also because of the small size and the contribution of water vapor to surface tension, they can collapse, right? But because of this pulmonary surfactant, okay, these particle actually inhibits the collapsing of this particular alveoli. Now, surfactant actually helps to lower the surface tension, thus preventing the collapse of this particular alveoli. And surfactant also participates in the innate host defense against the inhaled pathogens. Now, the very important how these surfactants actually composed. They are mainly composed of these structure, that is the DPPC. What is DPPC? This is the dipalmitoyl phosphatidylcholine. Dipalmitoyl phosphatidylcholine actually forms the 40% of this. Other phospholipid actually forms 40% of this surfactant. This proteins, there is surfactant proteins A, B, C, D from 5% and cholesterol forms the 5% of this. Now remember, this dipalmitoyl phosphatidylcholine has two 16 carbon saturated fatty acid, a phosphate group and a choline group attached. And the DPPC is the main component of surfactant and the strongest surfactant molecule in the alveoli. Now, the respiratory distress syndrome, RDS, very important. It is one of the most common causes of the morbidity in the preterm neonates, in the small kids. The patient actually presents shortly after birth with apnea, means almost loss of breathing, cyanosis, poor feeding and tachypnea. Tachypnea is the fast rate of breathing because the kid is actually not able to get a perfect amount of oxygen, enough amount of oxygen. So that's why tachypnea occurs. Now, radiological finding include a diffuse ground glass appearance because of the alveolar atelectasis. Okay, because the collapsing of this alveoli. Why? Because the amount in the RDS, the amount of the surfactant in the alveoli of the preterms neonates is actually almost nil or very less, and as because of this, the alveoli collapse. And the reason of the lack of the surfactant in the preterm neonates is because they are having the lackage or the shortage of DPL. That is, the dipalmitoyl lecithin in them is very less, and as the formation is not done well, and as because of this, the surfactant is not formed well, and as because of this, the alveoli collapse. Now, the ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. Now, it is a severe form of acute lung injury and syndrome of acute pulmonary inflammation. Now, what happens in this is that there is injury to the endothelium of the alveolar cell wall, and there is increase in the permeability of the alveolar capillary barrier. And because of the damage of the alveolar cell, they actually leads to the influx of the edema or edematic fluid into the alveoli, as well as decreased fluid clearance from the alveolar space. And as because of the increase in the fluid or the edema in the alveoli, this actually causes sudden onset or impaired gas exchange and the pulmonary edema. Meconium aspiration syndrome. Now, you may know what is meconium. You should know about this. Meconium is actually the darkish green colored fecal material of the infant in the uterus. Now, meconium staining of the amniotic fluid or the fetus is an indication of the fetal distress. Fetal respiration is associated with the movement of fluid from the airways out into the amniotic fluid normally. But now, however, in the presence of the fecal distress or in the presence of syndrome, what happens is gasping may be seen in the utero. Now, this leads to the aspiration of the amniotic fluid along with the meconium into the large airways. Now, as because this kid will actually take, this infant will actually take this meconium inside and inhale it and will take inside the body. Meconium is actually seen in the large airways and in the lungs, as you can see over the meconium in the lungs. Now, this is actually characterized by the airway obstruction, pneumonitis, pulmonary hypertension, acidosis, and the hypoxemia. The pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. Now, as the name says, proteinosis, there will be deposition of the proteinaceous material in the alveoli. So, congenital PAP or the pulmonary alveolar proteinosis is caused by inborn errors of the surfactant protein metabolism. Though I told you before, only this alveoli is actually formed by various of the proteins, surfactant proteins, right? So, any kind of inborn errors will cause accumulation of a large amount of protein and will cause pulmonary alveolar proteinosis. And the prognosis for infant with a congenital PAP has been uniformly poor, and they die within the first year of life only because the alveoli won't be able to work well to take the oxygen and give out the CO2. Now, neonatal hyaline membrane disease. Now, as you can see, this is a normal alveoli. While in this diseased alveoli, there is hyaline membrane gets accumulated inside the alveoli, and as because of this particular disease occurs. Now, waxy appearing layers of the hyaline membrane are seen lining the alveoli of the lungs. Now, we all know hyaline membrane are mainly composed of fibrin, debris, red blood cell, neutrophils and macrophages, and they appear as an eosinophilic amorphous material over here, lining or filling the space, air spaces and blocking the gas exchange. Now, as because of the formation of hyaline membrane inside the alveoli, of course, the blood passing through the lungs, as you can see, from the blood passing from the lungs won't be able to enter or won't be able to pick up by the alveoli, and as because of this, they won't be able to pick up the oxygen and unload the carbon dioxide, and the condition is known as a neonatal respiratory distress syndrome, and it is a surfactant deficiency disorder. Now, the next is the cephalin phosphatidylethanolamin. Okay, first was the lecithin. First type of nitrogen containing phospholipid was the lecithin. And next is cephalin. Now, this actually contains, of course, the glycerol. First and second will be having the fatty acid, but third will be having the phosphoric acid, which actually connect to the ethanolamine. Okay, previously the phosphoric acid in the phosphate group were actually attached to the nitrogen containing choline compound, right? While over here in the cephalin there will be ethanolamine. Now remember, the cephalin is actually basically found in the biomembranes and possesses the amphipathic properties. Now, the last type of the phospholipid containing the nitrogen base are the phosphatidylserine. Now, this actually differs from the cephalin and the lecithin because in this the nitrogen base is serine, which was ethanolamine and choline in cephalin and lecithin respectively. So, it is actually having serine in place of ethanolamine and choline. So, this is the end of part 1 of the classification of fatty acid and lipids. We'll discuss about the further things in our next further videos. So, hope you understood well. Thank you so much.